We can talk about, do we use missing values or not? We can talk about, we can actually pick some growth strategies. We'll get into these. We talk about the maximum number of branches that we want. So if we set the maximum number of branches at 2, we're kind of telling it, hey, let's do a cart algorithm. We get the maximum number of branches at, and I don't remember how big this goes, we'll play with it and see, at 3 or 4, then it can branch more places. The maximum levels, how big, how deep is our decision tree going to go, right? So there's some places where I'm like 4, because 4 fits on a slide and 6 doesn't. Not really good reason, but, right? So you can play with the maximum number of levels that you play with. The leaf size, right? So how big do we need a leaf to be? Right? At least how many observations do we want to actually break into a new leaf? The predictor bins, we'll talk about that. Right? Pruning. How much do you want to prune? Do you want to go ahead and let it be kind of a large tree with a lot of different options? This example, the default's actually 75%, so it actually makes the tree and it prunes it back quite a bit to find really kind of like the best rules. Again, kind of some different things here. We'll see them as we go. This one is a kind of a cool feature of ISYS. It's an auto-tune feature. Will you get to push that button? Yes. Is that the first button you pushed for an assignment? No. Okay, so your assignment is going to come up. It's all about decision trees. And I want you to play with some of these different things, right? Look at some of the different growth strategies. Look at some of the different options. Play with them at least 3 or 4 different trees that you create. Okay? And then when you're finished, you can push this button. And basically what this button does is says, you know what, I'm going to try all the things. And I'm going to try and find the best tree for you. Okay, so it'll try different maximum branches. It'll try different leaf sizes. It'll try different bin sizes. Okay. And you can have it go for a certain number of time. You can have it go for a certain number of records or iterations. The longer you do, potentially the better you get. It's kind of a fun little process. Okay. You also have a forest. Okay, but remember, so when we have a tree, we're going to actually get a picture of a tree, and it's going to be nice, you can interpret it. Our forest, I've used a lot of basically the same kind of default entrances here. And what we're going to do with the forest is it's going to basically help with that predictor, choosing the best predictors. We won't have rules that we can follow, but if we do a forest, and we find out that all the top 5 predictors are the same as our initial decision tree, then we can feel pretty comfortable that our decision tree is going to be something that we can talk about. We can feel more comfortable with our rules. Whereas if we just use our rules to begin with, we should still be able to feel comfortable with them, but we may want to be a little bit more cautious. So we'll do examples of this. ISYS Enterprise Miner, you're going to get to play with ISYS Enterprise Miner. In fact, you're going to get to play with the Dillard's data set in ISYS Enterprise Miner. Aren't you excited? Here is where we have like all those different splitting rules and all the things. So here you have your maximum branch, your depth, all of these things are happening here. Missing values, do you use it or not? These are the different options I was talking about with your splitting rules, right? The entropy, the probability for the F, for the interval target, the probability for the chi-squared. The genie would be one of the pull downs here. Okay, so this is where you can actually change all of that. That's the model flow. It's really very nice and simple. SPSS, I was telling you, has multiple nodes. So as in ISYS, you get to choose all the different things. Here, you get to pick the cart, so C and R tree, the cart, the C 5.0, the chain, the quest. There's actually a couple of new ones that I haven't even really dug into yet. Right? So there's a tree-AS, I'm not sure what it is. And you can just random trees. And then at SPSS, there's even a couple of more things, that, like options that you can pick. And there's things called boosting and bagging. Right? So boosting, the idea here is it's really going to enhance our model's accuracy. Bagging is talking about more stability. Okay? So we like to do some bagging, which is kind of related to a random forest, but it's doing it with single trees. But it's taking multiple data sets to create that one tree. So there are all sorts of different options and fun things to play with our decision trees. So I've done a couple of things. I went in and done some output that we can kind of play with. This is what a tree looks like in SPSS. Okay, I wanted you to kind of see what all the different trees look like. It's kind of nice. It's sometimes a little hard to see, but it'll always have, in this case, we're trying to figure out if somebody has an income above or below $50,000. And it'll have a row for above $50,000, a row for below $50,000, and it'll tell you in this node what percentage fits in each category, how pure the node is. We get our variable importance. We're still talking about a categorical variable, so we still get our coincidence gains. Can you see the one at the top?
Cool.
It's really, really light. It's really, really small. That's a decision tree coming from SPSS as well.
Okay, gosh.
Yeah.
That's one tree.
That's one tree. So, this one, how many splits do we have? What's the maximum number of splits? Okay. We got 2, right? We can split. They're binary splits. Most we can do. Cart. Nice. C4.5. Right? So it starts way up here at the top here. Right? That's where it starts. And it branches twice. And then this branch branches. Here, this branch is branching 3 different times. And it branches and it branches. This branch actually branches here. There's 3 branches. That branch goes down and branches out here. That one goes a little farther. Alright, getting a little bit harder to interpret. So that's kind of our software, that's our model. So let's talk evaluation of this. Right? So we can have, I have a new data set to play with. For my evaluation, so I did East-West Airlines. They're trying to learn more about their customers. And we want to know their flying patterns, are any frequent flyer rewards, are they using our airline credit card? Really the kind of thing that I'm interested in here is, do they use their rewards or not? I am horrible at using rewards. Horrible at it. I'll sign up for this, I'll sign up for that, and I'll use it like in one time for the thing that I signed up for, and I have no brand loyalty whatsoever. So award cards just do not work for me. Okay, so I am in the 0. I do not get your awards cards. Right? But we can come up with things like, what are the most important factors, and what rules can we create to try to figure things out about our businesses. So my make a decision game, this is a tree this is the tree that you're going to see in VIA. So the tree that you see in VIA says, hey, we're going to make a decision, bonus miles seems to be an important thing. And then if we go to the right, the number of flight transactions they have in a month, or in the last 12 months. That seems to be really important. This tree is kind of nice. It gives you a nice little color coded. The teal color is kind of 0. These are the people not using. And the 1 is the people that are using. But it's a little bit harder to kind of figure it out. This is a similar decision tree that I use for SPSS. Started out with, do you get an award or not? And our baseline, our naive rule, so here's an advantage to SPSS on this one, is 6337.
So that's looking at all the records.
So all the records that we have, and in this case this would be, so for this one I actually used all the records to make life easier. When we actually split this and partition it, you'll see this for multiple things, but yes. So whether it's the training or the validation data set. Okay. So instead of a 50-50, now we're looking at 63% of our people don't use our flight miles and 37% do. That tells us something really interesting right there. And so then we can actually go down and say, you know what, if we're trying to get better than a 63-37, if we look at the number of bonus miles, so if they have more than 7,000, or this is less than 7,572.5, kind of a weird number. And this is the one thing that SPSS, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't let us really change that value. Okay? It's done its algorithm, it's figured out what it wants, and that's the value it's come up with. SAS will let us do a little bit more interactive things, and we can actually change that. Like once it's run, we said, okay, this is good, but what if we change that to 7,500? Something we could actually talk about and want to use to make a rule. Right? Because making a rule on 7,572.5. But we could, and so our rule here, if this is what we were trying to figure out, if our bonus miles are less than that, then our customer does not use the award. We have a rule. And we can do this all the way down to figure out. So down here, so we started out with about 1,600 people. Half of them are in that category. We can calculate the confidence, we can calculate, or actually, we just calculate the support. Right? What is the support? So our support basically how much is in that node, right? So support is technically, here we have 853 of them out of 100 or 1,656. So 50%, 51% would be the support for this. Okay, this is a pretty heavy node here. The other 48% though, they have more than 7,500 miles. What's the next thing we're interested in? Yes.
And do they stop that one on the left because it's not like totally pure, but it's a big enough portion that they're like, okay, we can stop.
So what the algorithm would do is it would go in there, would actually try, if we split on flight miles, if we split on this, if we split on all the other possible variables, are we actually going to get something better than
that?
Right? And so there's a very good chance that, yes, that did happen. But then the model's going to prune it back and say that, you know, if we make this next split, it's not really going to give us that much more information. So we're going to just stop it right here.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Yeah. Okay. On the next one, however, though, it's not an 82-17%, right? Now it's a 40-60 split. It's like, you know what, there's going to be something else that we can split this on. So if you're making more than 75,000 bonus miles, then now let's split by the number of flight miles over the past 12 months. So basically, have you flown with us again or not? And so on one side, yes, you've flown with us for more than 25 miles. In that case, we'd have 75-25 on that split. It's about 20% more of our customers. And that's about as far as we're going to go. But if we keep going on this left, or this left-hand side, now these are people who haven't really flown with us over the last 12 months. Now let's talk about their balance. And their balance in this case is, I think, the number of flight points that they have. Do you have a lot or a few? Okay. When I say a lot or a few, it's less than 28, we probably round that to 29,000 points. If you got less than 29,000 points, then you are likely to continue to use us. But if you have more than 29,000 points, you're less likely. And this is one where I actually stopped it at 4 levels. Had we went to 6 levels, we might have gotten a little bit more information, and they might have broken this down a little bit farther. But I said stop at 4. So SPSS is kind of nice. It actually tells us what our rules are. So here we have this rule, this Same here. And it kind of breaks it down as it goes along. So SPSS is nice. Okay, look, I actually went through this and did more things. There's the metrics, there's the support, there's the confidence. Here's all the rules. And that's kind of what I had as far as, like, examples, like explanations. So now I think we need to play with this one. Just more fun, you guys get your hands on it. So the big thing we've added, which one should I pick? So now we have regression trees and classification trees. So if we have a continuous target, we're going to have regression trees. A categorical target, now we've got some classification trees. So we're building out all the different data mining techniques that we have. So let's go back to eBay. I'm still trying to figure out if that auction is going to work or not. So, most important factors, and if we can create some rules. This is what the SASEM output looks like. And what I'm interested in seeing is if we can replicate or if this is going to be different. So I'm going to use the same data set. Okay, we're still using the eBay data set. So the data set that I used to create this, if we put this into SAS Bayou, we get the exact same tree. So SAS is kind of nice. So it does this little color-coded thing. And you'll notice that it actually has both a training and a validation side. So I have a data partition in here, and it has information for both the training and validation. You'll notice that at the beginning, the training and the validation look really close. The farther you get to the bottom, the more they vary. You can see that if you go down that left-hand side, the third row down includes missing values as one of the options. It's a little bit nicer as far as size-wise. You can see the really important variables. So what variables do you see that are really important? Can you read that? So it starts out, we split on opening price, we split on closing price, we split on closing price again, we split on opening price again. Yes?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just confused. I didn't know you could go back and, like, I didn't know you could split back and forth like that.
You can.
If it's continuous, right?
Even if it's categorical.
No, really.
So at every decision point, all variables are available to be split with.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, how does that make sense?
If you're a
Right, so if we actually want to take this and put it into a
Yeah.
rule, right? So we want to take this and put it into a rule. So I'm going to follow the big fat black line because that's where going to be the majority of our customers are going. Okay, so if we go to the left, so overall we have, and I'm going to just look at the validation data set, I've got 790 people. If I go to the left, I have 170. If I go to the right, 619. So I'm going to the right. So if my opening price is greater than $1.23. Okay. So we're going to start with this. So open greater than $1.23. So then I'm going to go down to, do you want to go left or right? Right, great. So then we're going to go to closing price. So now my closing price is going to be greater than $10.02. So remember, my ultimate goal is what? Trying to predict if it's competitive or not. So if you want to split just once, then if your opening price is bigger than $1.23, you're going to be not competitive. And if your opening price is less than $1.23, you are competitive. Not what you thought it was going to do, was it? And if you take it a step further, if your closing price, so my opening price is greater than $1.23, and I'm looking at people who are not competitive. And if I go down to that right, then it's going to be my closing price is greater than $10. And that's about a 50-50 split on if they're competitive or not. Okay. so I really don't know a whole lot. So we need to split one more time. So I split again, and now I have an opening price of, I'm going to go to the right again. Okay, let's go to the left. Then we'll stop. So now I'm going to have an opening price that is less than $11. And if that's the case, now I have 86% of the people, or 83% of the people, meet this criteria, make it a competitive action, make it a competitive auction.
What are the colors?
So the colors really just have to do with the purity of.
Oh, okay.
So the darker it is, the more pure it is. So this is like our darkest one, and it's totally pure.
100. Well, the one at the bottom is 2.
So this one right here is also, yeah. So the dark ones are the pure leaves. The lighter the color, the less pure the leaf. So here we've got the white ones. This was like a 45, 54 to begin with. So it's white, it's not pure at all. It's kind of opposite of what you would think, but white purity. So darker equals more pure. Darker. Is pure a word? Pure word. Darker equals more pure.
Pure is a word. Purest is a word.
Purest is a word? Pure. So we have, so our rules, so to be able to get into node ID 12, so node 12, we could summarize this to say, if, yeah, so if my opening is less than $1.07, and my closing is greater than 10:02, then it's the 1, so it's going to be competitive. This node right here is what we're trying to find the rule for. So even though at the very beginning we split at $1.23, excuse me, yes.
So with the opening price, so like, if the opening price is less than 11.07, but then it also has to be greater than.
Yes.
Okay.
For a second, I thought they were going the same direction, so I could have just made the one comment, but no. So if
Oh, yeah.
123 open 11.07.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So if we're bigger than $1.23 and we're less than $1.07, and your closing is bigger than $10, then you're likely to have a competitive auction.
How would you do that with categorical variables though? 'Cause
Yeah.
If it like splits, you know, like if you're a male, then this will happen. But then if you're also a female, then
Right.
like,
I had the
like
exact
that
same
doesn't
thought.
make sense.
Initially, I was confused by doing it with continuous. Now I understand continuous, but I'm confused on categorical.
So
Or maybe if you have more than 2, well, that's still on your.
in that case, well, it wouldn't happen, right? So you can split on the same variable multiple times, but you can't on different. Right? So if you put yourself into, if you're a male,
You can't split again on that.
you could still split again on, but it would split again on
Like a subcategory.
like a sub. Yeah, it'd be more of a subcategory. So you wouldn't necessarily split on gender, or you could. I'm pretty sure if it has a binary thing, but it's not smart enough to figure that out.
But
I'm trying to think of an example where this has happened, and I can't
Yeah.
like come up with one.
no,
I mean, I feel like
I
it's
mean, I
what you're saying,
believe you. I just.
but
But if you were to put it on that binary factor again, like, it would zero it out because all of a sudden within that split,
you don't fit.
it can't split it on that further. It wouldn't accept that as an option.
So I think it would just
Split it
count it out, yeah. So you could split on, like you could split on, what do we have? Like you could split on category, and you could split on category again. but you shouldn't be able to split on a binary thing multiple times, because you can't follow this down. Because like over here, we went on a closing price less than $1.23, right? So if we went on gender, you've got males. Males are on this side.
Right.
We don't have females as an option anymore, so
Right.
gender's gone.
Right.
But if we split on games versus automotive, and then later down we split something versus something else. So like generally what would happen is
Then
it
it
would
would be
split.
like, yeah, no.
It would split. Here's the automotive, the cooking, the whatever. Here's the games, this, that. And then later down we say, okay, now automotive's going here and cooking's going here. So it's, I mean, it's still thinking through the tree of what options get sent.
Of what's
So-
like available
Right.
to you as you people down.
But as you work down, if you get rid of different variables, they can,
Come back.
right. So it's the variables that are available to use. So I guess I should clarify that, right? So it's not all possible values. It's all variables that are still available to use.
Okay.
Just remember, after we learn
So let's see if we can recreate eBay in VIA. You guys are, so you're going to use SAS Enterprise Miner, and you're going to use VIA for this one. SAS Enterprise Miner is going to look like that. There's a nice tutorial for it. SAS VIA, you know, we're working on those. So let's play and find, what do you think? Find issues. So let's go on to, let you guys all log in. And we're going to use the eBay dataset. And I haven't played with the eBay dataset, so I have no idea what's going to happen. No, let's just start with the blank. Alright, so I've got a lovely blank page. I want to pull in my eBay dataset. Hopefully, is the eBay auctions available for you all? We've already explored it, we kind of know what it looks like. So we've got our categories, we've got currency, end days, close price. We've got to change competitive to being a category variable. Duration, all of the other things should be good. We only have to make one change in our data. We're going to do our objects. We're going to scroll basically all the way down to the bottom. Come back up to the kind of the top of that section, and we'll find our decision tree. Drag and drop. Wait here, so I get everybody smiling and happy and all excited about creating a decision. Alright, so create a decision tree. Here we go. Step number 1, the roles. So supervised task means we have a target variable and it's competitive. Are we going to have a competitive auction or not? Then we get to choose our predictors. Are there any predictors we want to leave out? I mean, I don't see any reason to.
Put them all in there.
Put them all in there. Because what's one of the cool things that a decision tree does?
It'll choose it out for you.
Yeah, it's going to pick the best ones. One of its awesome things that it does. Ta-da.
That's a lot of colors. Or 2 colors.
So what's kind of happening in all of these different pictures? So we've got decision tree, and we're trying to figure out is it competitive or not. Okay. So the event that it's looking for is one that is competitive. Yes. Oh, the partition. Why do you want to go off and ruin things? Partition. I'm going to go for this example. I'm going to leave the partition out, just so it talks out a little bit easier. Should you use a partition? Absolutely.
For the assignment.
Yes. For the assignment, should you use a partition? Absolutely. Are we going to use a partition this time? We're not. Just so that way we don't have issues with picking the right random seed and everybody getting different answers. Alright, so what do we have? So we have, I like my misclassification rates. Let me change that. I mean, so overall, a 30% misclassification rate. It's not perfect, it's not pure. But we're going to try it, we're going to start with it. So are you going to want to make big, huge, critical decisions? But is it going to give us some guidance to maybe help? Right? Because right now, you don't know anything about if it's competitive or not. So at least at the end of this, it may not be right all the time, but we'll get it.
What are we doing?
So we have a tree, nice, pretty picture. Let's see what happens if we... Oh, it's going to let me answer really second. So if you click on the three little dots, you have some options. We have this interactive mode. We're not going to do that yet. But it's going to let us have a little bit more control. Okay. And we can look at things as either the count, the frequency within each leaf, or we can change it to the percent. Okay. It's kind of nice. So I really can't tell exactly what's going on with this tree. I can see the big pictures. Okay. So when we're looking at this, how many splits do we have in each node? Two. So we probably are going to be using what type of algorithm?
Card.
Okay. We're probably looking at the card algorithm. So Vi is nice and interactive, so we can go and hover over any of the colored blocks. And so this is node 15. There's 16 people within that node. This has a large closing price of over $99. It has a large opening price of over $50. It looks like we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 10 of our 18 categories fit into this. And all 100 of those are orange, and orange means they're going to be competitive. Okay, so if you've got a $50 opening price, you've got a high closing price, looks like you're a pretty competitive auction. What happens if we zoom in here? I gotta get a roll. Next, you can zoom in. Oh, look what happens when I zoom in. So when you zoom in, you get to see a little bit more. And at each split, it's kind of telling me, so here's where we have a closing price. Right, so my closing price is greater than $99 or less than $99. So if it's greater than $99, I'm competitive. If it's less than $99, I've got 13 people in this category, or 13 auctions in this category. 9 of them are competitive, and 4 of them aren't. You can zoom in, you can zoom around, you can see what's happening. So the larger the path, this is where more of our people are going. So more of our people, we didn't really split necessarily open price. Looks like the end day. Let's see if we can zoom in on that one. This one's kind of interesting because it says it's splitting on end day, but then it doesn't really tell us what's happening. So then it says, well, we split on end day, but then there wasn't anything that was a leaf yet.
See, then like even more.
Does it?
Yeah, a little crap. So.
Oh, it's a tiny one. That's fun.
Yeah.
But it's really not telling us much because it's still that 50-50 spot, right? So it's like, really, you can look at it, but you don't need to know really what it is yet, because we're not splitting here. Or we are splitting here, but we're not finishing here. Okay. So we can look at seller. And we can actually get down to, so this is not a very competitive auction. If you're ending on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, doesn't look like you're doing too good. But if we go down this other path, you're getting a little bit more competitive. Ending on Monday or Thursday. And you have a much smaller amount of categories in this one. 83% are going to be competitive in this category. Yes. Which is the other one?
I guess it was in the problem.
Sure.
So, why does this one, it seems to split, right?
Is it, I mean, it's the same data, right?
And it's the same data.
Because this one seems more like it's 50-50 at each split than this one.
So,
Plus there's less split.
so there's less splits. It looks a little bit different. We're not getting exactly the same rules necessarily. At least we're not getting exactly the same splits. We haven't figured out if we're not getting the same rules yet or not. Okay. And this has to do with what all things did I change to get this graph? Did I shrink the number of iterations that I let it go? Did I change the different criteria methods? Did I change the different splitting methods? So how I got this particular graph, because Dr. Keeper didn't make a nice little chart and tell you all these things, we have no idea how to replicate this. You have no idea what the misclassification rate is for this graph, right? Is it 30%? Is it 20%? Right? So what if, do we think we can get something that's more like this graph, assuming this is a good one? Okay. So what we've done so far is we just did the default. So let's see if we can change our graph. Okay, so we still have our variable importance, and I doubt this is going to change. It might. Right, so category seems to be really important. The closing price. And you'll notice that just because they're important doesn't necessarily mean they're the first split. It just means that overall, they wind up being important in making our decision. Okay. So let's see if we can go to our options. And we have all these different things to change. So if we go down to our decision tree, my event level is 1, right, because I'm looking at competitive. Do I use missing values or not? Let's see if we go back to my, I did use missing values in this one. So we can keep missing values if we're going to try and make this happen. The minimum value here. So right now I'm saying you have to have at least one value to be in a node. Right? Well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want, if you're going to be a node, you need to have at least 10. And I'm just arbitrary number. You need to have at least 10 to be a node. Let's see if that changes anything. I don't think it really did, because most of our nodes, if we look, did it maybe get rid of 1? For the most part, well, this one only has 5 in it, though. Oh, sorry. This minimum value, that's going to be for the missing, I think. So we're using the missing, but you have to have at least 10. So let's move down to the growth strategy. And right now it's custom, so it's just basically letting us play. So we could do a basic, and I will have to look up what these mean. A basic growth strategy, and that changed things quite a bit. So now category is really the predominant thing here. We can try a advanced growth strategy. video. If I don't do good videos, there's a video right there. This is an older version, so it's not quite as helpful. So we can figure out what all these different things mean. For me, so I will figure out what these different growth strategies are. So modeling changes it too. Modeling's closer to what we had originally.
Would we compare all these on the risk classification?
Has anything really changed? So basic, now we're at a 35% risk classification. Advanced,
Custom was 11.
we're at a 32. Modeling got us down to 29. And custom is the same, yeah.
And another question. So you've got like like all the orange and the blue, and so like if it's orange, it's competitive. If it's blue, it's not. And so each one of those is kind of like a different path to get there, like a rule. So would you like, when you figure out like what model you want is best, would you like try to combine all of that into like, this is what it is to be competitive, this is what it is to be non-competitive? It's like taking all of the rules and making like one big rule?
Yes. Well, not necessarily a big rule,
But just like,
you could take insights from all of these different nodes and see if you could. So there's a difference in interpreting a rule from the decision tree and then trying to make something meaningful out of it that you could actually use. Right. So the decision tree is actually going to say it's this and this and this and this, and it's really going to try and break it down for you.
right,
And then as you start to get those rules,
would affect the general trend.
right, so higher closing prices make it more competitive. And opening prices that are, in this case it was high, in that case it's high. That's still technically a high opening price. It's less than 250, but it's still higher than, right? Even over here as we're starting to go. So now we have a lower than $50 opening price. Opening price. Closing price. So we have a low closing price. So you're going to start to see different things that you may find out that given the different categories, category might have higher opening prices or lower opening prices. And so you're going to kind of go through the rules, and then you can condense them to see if you can actually make like a holistic idea.
Right.
Yeah.
In the little boxes, the solid boxes are going to be pure for the most people.
Right. So the solid boxes, that's where you get the pureness. Here, you're going to be able to see that this is more of a 15, so it's a 60-40 split, and so you can see that there's less white. And so that's where if you, the more you go in, you're like, more, and then you can see the difference between the two. So yeah, it gives you a scalable visual, depending on how you're kind of looking at it. All right, so we're trying a bunch of different growth strategies. Custom seems to be kind of the one. So custom is where I'm going to start to play with things. All right, so right now I'm saying the maximum branches is you have to be binary. Right? But what if I want you to have 3 branches? Go for it. And to think more now. That's definitely a different picture. So now we're letting it split multiple times. So the seller rating, in this case, really starts to break. So we still have one primary seller rating. And this is going to be our seller rating between, and again, they're kind of weird numbers. Okay, but again, between about 4,000 and 26, 27,000. Whereas when we're over farther, right, so that you may call that in the middle. I'm not sure if middle is going to be our right word or not. And we can see what's over here. This is really tiny. Okay. but it's still going to be seller rating. So what's happening with the seller rating over here? This is where you have the really high seller ratings. And we didn't have a whole lot of those. Right? So our really high seller ratings, that's where we're getting our competitive options, it looks like. But that still even broke down even further. Right. So now you have the seller ratings that are below that, and it's all competitive. And seller ratings above the 28,000. But again, we're looking at 6 people here. Okay. So are 6 people enough? Is that what we're interested in? Okay, so if I let it branch into 3s, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm at like 5 different levels. I said I could go up to 6 levels. This looks kind of crazy. What if I go down to 4 levels? Right, so we have 5. And what happens? So our misclassification right now is what? 46%. So is this the best one we've gotten so far? What happens if I go down to, what do we say, 4 maximum levels? So you can still branch 3 times, but you can only go to 4 levels. My misclassification rate went up. But now my branching isn't quite as crazy. So now here I still have different sellers. So here I have 22 to 26,000. This is 3,000 to 15,000. So those are both not competitive. But here, if you have a seller rating that's in the middle, you are competitive. Again, does that become beneficial? Does it become useful? Does it become actionable? That we don't necessarily know yet. We just know what the data are telling us. So ultimately, what we may figure out right there is like, maybe seller rating does or doesn't matter. And this is kind of the idea with decision trees. You get to try and find the best one. Does it seem just like you're playing, just like you're trying different things? Yeah. You're just playing.
But basically, we just always look back at that misclassification rate.
That is our big kind of key right now.
Okay.
So the way we're going to choose for right now, as far as we're going to get with decision trees, the way we're going to choose our best model is by looking for misclassification rate.
Okay.
Again, if you get in deeper, so I'm going to go back to make life easier to talk about, I'm going to go back to 2 maximum branches. I'm going to leave it at 4 maximum levels just so we have a little less to talk about. So now it's really starting to focus in. And you'll notice category is a little less important here. So when I only have 2 splits and I'm only going down 4 levels, now category is not as important. Okay, but my misclassification rate is also at even higher. Okay, so being able to have more levels and prune better, right here we're just saying, well, we're looking at your end days, so if you ended on these days, if you ended on these days, that's kind of what we're basically saying. You can go a little bit further, right? You can actually, so this has an option, do you reuse your predictors or not? So if you decide that you don't want to, you can say no, let's not use reuse predictors. See what happens here? That was not going to matter as much yet. But, again, this is with the playing stuff. We'll do a maximum of that, we'll do a maximum, I'm going to go back to 6 levels real quick. This was kind of the one we started with. And if I do the one we're started with, and then I say you can't reuse predictors, it changes a little bit. Okay, so when I reuse predictors, my misclassification rate's 29%. When I don't reuse predictors, it's up to 31%, 32%. It's being able to reuse predictors and make that one big split and then be able to split again, especially on category because it's the most important. That helps us get better misclassification rates. Here we have, where'd you go?
Tell me again, what is the thickness line indicate exactly? Is it like
More people.
It's how many records go.
Right, so there's-
on that road drive.
Right, so you got 85% on this side and 15% on this side.
so in that sense you could call it like the best?
Yes, the primary group.
Yeah.
Right, so when we're thinking about the different paths, you can think about here's the majority. So of my data, this is where most people are headed. So you have a majority path. You can also have a preferred path. Right, so maybe this is the majority, but that's not really where I want to go. Because if I'm looking for a competitive auction, then of these 9, of these orange boxes, where do I find the most people there? Maybe that's your preferred path. Yes.
So we're getting a lower misclassification error rate on the one we have 6 levels and more branches. When you get a lot of pure boxes, when they're in the slide, that becomes a problem. You overfit.
So at this point, we're probably not overfitting too bad because we have a large enough data set and things seem to be going okay. It's when you start to get all the way down to like 1 or 2 or just a very few, that's when the overfitting's happening. So as long as you set like, let's say like this, right? So here, even the very pure one over here, so this one has 7.
Yeah.
Right? So 7 might be a little small, but you're also looking at this split. You have to look at the whole together. So there's only 7 that's happening over here, but we still have 36 in this other box. So this split is happening with almost 50 people. So if you have 50 people and you want to split them again, that seems pretty reasonable.
You just don't want to get down to the point where you're having like 10 or 20 rules at the bottom.
Right.
Where it's like 2 here, 1 here, 3
Exactly.
here.
That's where your overfitting's happening. So if you're splitting on 50 people, if you're splitting on 30 people, that's for 30 observations. That's probably okay. But it's when you're like, oh, I've got 5 people. Let's see if we can split this a little bit further. Then you're getting really into the overfitting.
So then you'd want to like reduce your branches probably.
Either reduce your branches, prune it back somehow. So that's actually what I'm looking for. Is there should be and it may not happen on.
Like an auto.
Where is that auto tune? We haven't played with that button yet. You guys want to play the auto tune button and see what happens?
Go for it.
So we've done some things. So as we've been looking, the best one we got at one point had about 29% for misclassification rates. I think, and that was when we had the multiple splits. So the auto tune feature, here are your options. So you have a maximum, you can say this is how long I want you to run for, or this is how many that we want to try, right? So it's going to select optimal values for the maximum number of levels and for the predictor bins. Okay? So let's just auto tune it right now. Let's see what happens. So it's trying different levels. It's trying different bin sizes. And we got down to an 18% misclassification rate.
No, I get that.
You guys got down to 10? Yeah.
Oh,
How come I didn't get down to 10?
I got what you got. Just a little bit.
Maybe there's like a setting that we detected in the register or something.
Yeah.
Your maximum levels are at 15.
Yeah,
Mine are
11019. 17 levels.
Yeah, mine's at 17.
Maximum iteration. No.
I think it's your maximum levels. Yeah. These are at 15 and ours are at 17.
Well, I didn't change. It's supposed to do it. That's auto tuning. It's the one.
I don't know. Sorry.
I got what you got.
Do you still have the reuse predictors checked? 'Cause I have that checked.
Oh.
That's probably it.
Now it's okay if I reuse predictors. That's auto tuning.
There we go.
Yay.
Now we're talking.
I would still
probably mad at me that I was in the middle. Let's try to do one more time.
It should be at the bottom of the G.
Right, so again, all the different things. Okay, but congratulations us. We got down to a 10% misclassification rate. But you got 16 or 17 different levels. What are we talking about here? We get down to teeny tiny. Now we've got 5. Now we have 10. Now we have, that's a little bit better. At least we got 27 there. We've got 6 people. We've got 5 people. So can we make this happen? Yes. Should we make this happen?
Absolutely.
Yes. Right? It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you're trying. It depends on how much data you have. It depends on what you're kind of trusting this to do. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to find this minimum misclassification.
So the misclassification rate got a lot better, but the lift chart, there's a lot smaller gap.
Like through the splits, they're all pretty evenly split. Like you don't have a really thick, best pass sort of thing.
So we've classified better,
Yeah.
but we haven't necessarily made
Kind of getting less
A
out of
better
it.
model.
a better model.
Okay.
Okay?
If you look at the other ones, kind of.
So if we go back to, I'm going to keep the similar things. So maybe it found a good break. What if I take my maximum levels back to 6?
Do 3 in the branches maybe.
And so still, now I still have my 2 branches with 6 for my maximum levels, which is what I had before. My misclassification rate is better. My model's a little bit better. I have a little bit more lift here.
Isn't it better to have the line closer to the lid?
You want bigger
Yeah,
spaces.
you want a bigger gap,
So,
because that means your model is.
Actually, okay, so hold on, let's take this back.
So I probably should.
SAS Maya does things differently.
Yeah. I think I said that was next one.
This is a cumulative lift. This is saying our best model and our model.
Okay.
So you want it closer.
So this time you do want it closer.
Okay.
So in general, yes,
The lines are different.
the lines are different in this graph.
That makes sense.
Let's look at this, our rock curve. This is where you want to see the bigger gap. So if I went back to, what we said, was it 17? Tell the thing. So this is a little bit better in terms of the misclassification, in terms of, and that's so, this idea is the misclassification. That's just a different way to view it. It's doing better with more of this, but the interpretability of it potentially has gone down. And the whole idea behind your decision trees is giving you some rules that you can actually talk about. So all the things that you get to play with, that you get to describe, you get to have fun with, this is day 1 of decision trees. We're actually going to spend more time on decision trees next week. Before I let you out early, if you guys don't care. We can spend another 15 minutes if you want to. I feel like we've done brain work today. I have one question for you.